All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we do have some bad Marshon Lattimore and potentially some bad Brian Robinson news as well. We also have a scary kicker injury update too, and then we also have the team captains have been announced versus the Steelers. And you already know this video is sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. But before we dive into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. You already know I will be live streaming this upcoming game against the Steelers with or without Marshon Lattimore. Make sure y'all pull up. I will be breaking down and doing play-by-play and analyzing all four quarters. I'm expecting us to still go win that game no matter what. So again, make sure you pull up and support the channel and we watch it all together. I can't wait for that showdown because I have a Steelers fan friend as well, so I can't wait to beat them so I can talk trash. Without further ado, let's go and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. And whoa, before we talk about anything, I have to shout out Glenn for the big time Cash App donation. I appreciate the message as well. Thank you very much. I feel like the least I can do when y'all donate, and I'm not currently live streaming as y'all donate, is to shout y'all out and thank y'all in my very next video that I'm recording, man. So I really appreciate that. Let's get it. And so to dive straight into it, Commanders head coach Dan Quinn announced that cornerback Marshon Lattimore, who we just traded for Tuesday, right before the trade deadline, a couple of hours before the trade deadline, will not play Sunday versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's in Landover, Maryland, though. It's a home game. We're going to need that home crowd to show out and show up. We're going to really need that. But I think I said that backwards. Show up and show out. Either way, he's not quite there yet with his hamstring injury. He's not comfortable enough to go on it right now. And it's really not surprising, especially since he arrived this week. We haven't really seen him practice much at all. Like, he's just been walking around, jumping around, maybe exercising a little, but he hasn't like practiced with the team yet. And of course, they're definitely trying to get him ready for the Eagles on a short week. So that's definitely probably a big factor there. And it was looking like Marshon Lattimore would not play versus the Steelers all week with how he just wasn't practicing. I mean, so I already was starting to accept the fact that it may be George Pickens and Mike Williams. And George Pickens is a Georgia dog, mind you, versus our usual cornerback room of Benjamin St-Juste, Mike Sanford still on the outsides, and then Noah Benogany on the inside. Because since we traded for Marshon Lattimore, we've been trying to hypothesize, like, is it going to be Marshon outside with Mike Sanford still staying outside, and then Noah Benogany still your slot corner because Benjamin St-Juste is a pure outside corner. And then maybe you only ask him to cover the bigger, taller guys. But then maybe there's a situation where you just move Mike Sanford still back to the slot where he originally was, and then your outside corners are Marshon Lattimore and Benjamin St-Juste. This all sorts of combinations we can go with. I find it funny though that none of the combinations include Emmanuel Forbes and Michael Davis. But either way, I mean, there's just so many ways that we can play around with this because Marshon Lattimore, pure outside corner. I would say that Benjamin St-Juste, pure outside corner, and really should only be asked to cover the bigger, taller guys that aren't as fast, like the Mike Williams and things like that, which would probably leave Mike Sanford still on a guy like George Pickens. But I'm pretty sure with Marshon Lattimore out, they're still going to ask Benjamin St-Juste to cover George Pickens, which does frighten me a little bit. But either way, I mean, with those two guys being pure outside corners, Mike Sanford still, I prefer him at outside corner. But remember, we drafted him to be a slot, and that's where he was all throughout the offseason and like the first couple of games of the regular season. Then we moved him to the outside corner, and then he started to perform very well and develop very quickly there. And so this is going to be really interesting to see what Dan Quinn decides to do with these guys. I'm really intrigued by that. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson because I agree. He said, first of all, get him healthier and ready for Philadelphia on Thursday. That's first and foremost. And secondly, Eagles wide receiver group is scarier than Pittsburgh. So I would agree. We do need Marshon more against the Eagles, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith. Then we need him against the Pittsburgh Steelers with even Georgia dog George Pickens and Mike Williams, who the Steelers just traded for with a 5th round pick very soon after we traded for Marshawn Lynch. I hope they didn't think that that was like their cancel out. Like, oh, y'all got Marshon, well, we got Mike Williams. Nah, it was never that. Even if Marshon would have played, he wouldn't have necessarily been covering Mike Williams very much. They do not equal. That's not the same caliber of move there. But either way, finishing with Grant Paulson's point. He said Washington won't win or lose a Pittsburgh game based on not having Lattimore. He'll be more necessary and more vital to that game that's coming up in 6 days. That's incredible. We still don't play the Steelers until another 2 days. Just think about the fact that we play the Eagles in 6 days from today right now. In less than a week from today, and we still haven't even played the Steelers yet. That is insane when you really think about it. And I'm thinking the Commanders definitely prioritized having Marshon ready for the division rival rather than the team that we're not very likely to play again at any point this season. I mean, unless somehow that we both end up reaching the Super Bowl, I think that's very unlikely. But I think the Eagles, we have to win those games to win this division. Like, yeah, we swept the Giants. Yeah, congratulations, pat on the back. That's great and all. But if we don't beat the Eagles, beating the Giants would have pretty much just been canceled out and it wouldn't have mattered. We will play them twice still. We have a second half of the season to go. We've already played the first half of the season. We haven't played them, nor the Cowboys yet. We still have to play those guys twice each. But most specifically, the Eagles, we have to play them twice this regular season. And it's quite likely that we may even run into them again in the playoffs as well. Also, we play the Eagles, again, I want to point out, Thursday night coming up. So Marshon dealing with this injury after he just missed last week's game for the Saints versus the Panthers, and then playing the physical Steelers team, and then having to play the Eagles just 4 days after that. I mean, not the best idea unless he's like 100% healthy like most of the guys that we have on this roster. It's not worth it to force it. Of course, we would love to beat the Steelers, but I feel like the biggest argument to be made is that we can still beat the Steelers without him. Like, if we never would have traded for Marshawn Lynch, I still would be going into this game pretty confident that we would beat the Steelers. So I hope that people don't like calculate, oh man, Marshon Lattimore is out, as if we had him in the first place, like as if he had any part in the why we were 7-2 in the first place. Remember, the Steelers lost to the Cowboys, who are sorry this year. Remember that. Now, granted, that was Justin Fields and not Russell Wilson, but I don't think Russell Wilson is just that much better than Justin Fields, and they couldn't stop. They can't stop anybody's run game right now, and that's what we do best. So I'm not really worried about it. Marshon Lattimore, yes, he would have helped a lot, but we need Marshon Lattimore versus the Eagles compared to the Steelers. The Steelers do have two good receivers, but they just recently traded for one, and then there's George Pickens. But the Philadelphia Eagles have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. If we can't stop them from making plays, it's over with. Whereas the Steelers, even George Pickens may have an attitude today for any reason when we play the Steelers. Mike Williams may still be rusty. He's still a shell of his former self with all of the injuries that he's had to deal with the past couple of years, and he really didn't do much for the Jets. I'm not expecting him to just go to the Steelers and suddenly go back to his Chargers self. So I think we definitely need Marshon Lattimore more for the Philadelphia Eagles game. Even if you just ignore the fact that the Eagles are a division rival and the Steelers are not, I think even just matchup-wise, Marshon Lattimore is far more vital to our success against the Eagles Thursday night than he would have been against the Steelers. I think we could definitely win without him. But I'm also very optimistic that Marshon will be available against the Eagles, because first of all, Adam Peters said a couple of days ago that they requested all of his medical records from the Saints and they liked what they saw, which is what gave them the go-ahead to go through with the trade for Marshon Lattimore. And I doubt that this is any sort of like long-term injury if Adam Peters and Dan Quinn were willing to trade for him at all, because I know we are building towards the future. Yeah, we're building towards 2025, 2026, all of those future years, but this trade was definitely prioritized and made to make us better for 2024. That's the majority of the reason why we traded for him, and to help make us go on a Super Bowl run this year, not future years, this year more so than anything else. So if Adam Peters is optimistic about Marshon's injury, then I am as well. It's just as simple as that. But also, second, he didn't look crazy hurt in practice. I already showed y'all a couple of clips of him walking around dapping people up in practice a couple of days ago. But even in today's practice, as you're looking on the screen, he's walking around. He doesn't seem to be really hampered much by his injury or any serious pain from the clips from him at practice this week. It looks like he's kind of chilling. But I'm assuming that the majority of the reason to rest him versus the Steelers is the fact that we have to play the Eagles 4 days later after we play the Steelers. I think if we play the Eagles on Sunday, next Sunday, rather than this upcoming Thursday, I think there's far more likely a chance that Marshon plays against the Steelers, but I think they're just saving him for the Eagles. It's just not worth the risk in a season where we want to win it all. We're not just trying to win November. We're not just trying to win December. We're trying to win games in January. And John Keim also pointed out the fact that Marshon Lattimore was doing some work on the side field in practice today, so he was also exercising and doing some things besides just walking around in practice like you saw in that clip just a few seconds ago. But Shouts out to Burgundy Blog because I completely agree. He said anxious to see Lattimore, but more anxious to see him in January. That's the most important thing. Even though I doubt we'll have to wait that long at all. Again, I think he will play against the Eagles. I'm actually very optimistic about that. But the most important thing is that he's available in January when we're trying to go on this playoff run. Also, shouts out to Sam48 for this. He said cornerback Marshon Lattimore hamstring will not play Sunday. So, of course, we should expect Benjamin St-Juste and Mike Sanford still outside and Noah Benogany in the slot. Again, going back to my point earlier, I'm not exactly sure how they're going to handle things with Marshon Lattimore in the mix, but right now going into this game, I'm expecting Benjamin St-Juste more than likely on Mike Williams since he's so big and Mike Sanford still is so small. If Mike Sanford still was an average corner, height-wise, like average heighted corner, like 6 foot flat or something like that, then maybe I can see them mixing it up. But Benjamin St-Juste is 6'3", nearly 6'4". I don't see how Mike Sanford still at like 5'9" could ever deal with a Mike Williams. Like, that is Benjamin St-Juste's job, period. I can see Noah Benogany more likely on George Pickens, with Mike Sanford still, of course, on George Pickens the most. Then I see Benjamin St-Juste just off of the fact that who else can cover Mike Williams at like 6'4", 6'5", or whatever he is. And don't get me wrong, George Pickens is a pretty tall receiver as well. But he's not as tall and long as Mike Williams, and I love Mike Sanford still, but at like 5'10" at best, I don't really see him doing a great job against Mike Williams. So Benjamin St-Juste, that is your permanent assignment, even when Marshon Lattimore comes back and he's fully healthy. Unless the other team's best receiver is really tall, like a Mike Williams, I don't see Marshon Lattimore covering that guy. I see that more so being like a Benjamin St-Juste situation. Marshon Lattimore is supposed to cover the best receiver on the other team no matter what. And usually it's not some 6'5" freak athlete like a Mike Evans. Now, that's the only situation where I see Marshon Lattimore covering the unnecessarily tall receiver from the other team. But again, since he's not here, I see Benjamin St-Juste covering Mike Williams and Mike Sanford still taking on the more agile, the better route running, and more athletic George Pickens. That just makes the most sense to me, but who knows? We'll see when we get into that game. Maybe they switch it up more than we know. But shouts out to Karita Parks for pointing out the fact that it was revealed on Thursday Night Football that the Ravens were in the mix for cornerback Marshon Lattimore. They offered a third-round pick, but were outbid by the Commanders. Shouts out to Adam Peters and Dan Quinn for doing whatever they had to do, because it's even crazier the fact that we gave them the lesser of our 2 third-round picks. Like, instead of giving them the better one that they definitely wanted more, and the Dolphins' third-round pick that we got from the Eagles via the Jahan Dotson trade, we were able to get Marshon Lattimore by giving up our own later third-round pick. So I'm assuming it's because we threw in like the 4th and the 6th, and then we got the 5th in return that made it possible for us to get them. And maybe the Ravens just weren't willing to give up additional mid-late round picks to be included in the deal. But either way, that just lets you know that this was a player worth trading for. I mean, if the Chiefs were in trying to get in for this for like weeks, and then the Ravens were right there until the end, that lets you know that this is a player that the Commanders won. We didn't just trade for him, we won him. Like, this is a player that Super Bowl contenders, the best teams in the NFL, were all trying to get. I mean, we didn't necessarily beat the Ravens for a win in the regular season, but we beat them for Marshon Lattimore, and maybe he'll help us beat them in the Super Bowl if we face them with Marshon Lattimore. So let's get it, man. And before we move on to the second half of this video, you already know that this show is provided by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino, and if you're looking for a new sportsbook, it should be BetUS for sure, man. First of all, they have the fastest payouts in the industry, and I know y'all want y'all money fast. I know I do. And right now, BetUS is offering you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and a 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits for up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. That's YOUTUBE150. And they also have a fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process as well. So it's like, why not? Now let's take a look at some of the betting that we could get into directly through their website. So if you believe that the Commanders, even though we are the underdogs going into this game, very slight underdogs by just -3. But either way, if you think that we can somehow pull this win off without Marshawn Lynch, but you got to remember, we are at home. If you want to place this bet, you could end up making a profit. I would still argue, again, we got the 7-2 before we had Marshon Lattimore, so it's not like we're necessarily missing anything. Even before we traded for Marshon Lattimore, like I said earlier, I was confident that we would beat the Steelers again. You got to remember, this team lost to the Cowboys. This is the team that lost to the Cowboys. We should not lose to the Cowboys. Dak or no Dak, we're not losing to the Cowboys. So if you wanted to place a bet on this one, say you put $100 down, you would end up winning $105 by the end of it. And I'm not going to lie, again, I'm pretty confident that we're going to beat the Cowboys. So it's at least, it's a small game, but it's still a gain there, man. This is probably a bet that's worth making. But of course, I'm going to always scream at y'all to please gamble responsibly no matter what. But I'm just that confident in my Commanders to beat these Steelers. That just is what it is, especially since we're playing at home. And again, we got the 7-2 without Marshon Lattimore. And again, before we move on, right now, BetUS is offering you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and a 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits for up to $2,000 with code YOUTUBE150. Please make sure y'all gamble responsibly, man. Let's get it. I'm confident in this bet, I'm not gonna lie. And now let's go ahead and move on to the rest of this video. Then we have a Brian Robinson update, and this one isn't necessarily that good either. Apparently, Brian Robinson was not seen practicing in the open portion of media. Now, of course, later on today, once we come out with the official final injury report for this upcoming game against the Steelers on Sunday, it will show us whether he's good to go, questionable, doubtful, out, whatever. But it's not necessarily looking good just off of that alone. And also, when you look at the rest of the injury report before we get this final one today, Wednesday he was limited with a hamstring injury. Thursday he was limited with a hamstring injury. And of course, he didn't play last week against the Giants due to that hamstring injury. And he's been limited so far all week in practice. Not exactly sure what he was today. We'll see the official designation there. Again, I'll update y'all on that later on tonight, this evening. But not looking too good for Brian Robinson. But at the same time, shouts out to Chris Rodriguez, who allowed Marshon Lattimore to take the number 23. He's switching to number 36, and he gave a great reason for it. Make sure you go check out those interviews that he's had with various Commanders reporters that actually literally work for the Commander, the beat writers and all those type of stuff. Some great quotes, some really humble quotes. Shouts out to Chris Rodriguez. So if Brian Robinson is not able to go, I think we'll be in pretty good hands with Chris Rodriguez. As long as he holds on to that ball, you saw how well he was running against the Giants. I mean, as the game went on, as we started to run him more and more, they just looked like they were absolutely sick of tackling him. Sick of it. To get mauled by our offensive line, and then you have this guy that's ready to run people over and fall forward and gain yards after contact no matter what. I mean, again, I feel like a lot of people have missed this. I've talked about this before, even when we first drafted Chris Rodriguez, when it was an Eric Bieniemy pick made, and I told people, hey, man, watch out. Chris Rodriguez may be better than you think. Got to watch out for the fumbles, but he's a great runner. My whole reason is love Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson is better than Chris Rodriguez. I'm not taking anything away from that, but when we're talking about getting it out the mud, Brian Robinson played behind an Alabama offensive line all throughout college, and 9 times out of 10, probably even more than that, his offensive line was better than the opponent's defensive line. Whereas Chris Rodriguez had Will Levis as a quarterback in a bad offensive line. Typically, when Chris Rodriguez 9 times out of 10 was going against an opposing defense, that defensive line was better than his offensive line. And this guy still found a way to gain yardage. So when we're talking about somebody that can get it out the mud, and then now he's playing for a Commander's offensive line that opens up big holes for him, I mean, it's easier at the NFL level than it was in college for a guy like him. So that's why I'm really happy and excited that Chris Rodriguez is getting this opportunity, and he's looking pretty good. I prefer Brian Robinson. I'm not going as far as to say Chris Rodriguez is better than Brian Robinson, but there's a reason that we're 4 deep at running back right now. We have the 2 receiving backs, and then our 2 toting in between the tackles, run you over running backs are all solidified as well. So we'll be good to go. I want Brian Robinson back. I feel like he's our best overall running back, all around running back for what we want to do in this offense. I feel like he's the best fit for what Cliff Kingsbury is trying to do with this downhill running attack. Even as shiny and interesting and exciting and explosive as our offense is, at the very core, we're playing smash mouth football. It's exotic, but it's still smash mouth football, run right through your chest type of football. Like Marshawn Lynch would have loved this type of atmosphere, this type of run game. But that's why Brian Robinson is so key. But it's not like you just have this huge drop off going from Brian Robinson to Chris Rodriguez, is my point. He made the most of his opportunity against the Giants. So if he has to go again against the Steelers, I'm excited. Now, we also have some kicker updates as well, because Austin Cyborg, well, his real name is Austin Seibert, but at this point, Ever since I came up with Cyborg, it just rolls so naturally off the tongue. I got to remember that his last name is actually Cyber. But either way, he's been dealing with a right hip injury all week. He didn't participate in practice on Wednesday, but then he did participate in practice yesterday, as in Thursday. He was limited though, so at least he's moving in towards like a positive trajectory as far as that goes. And again, I will update y'all on his final designation. What did he do today in practice, as in Friday? I'll give y'all that update a little bit later. But either way, it's not looking great for Austin Cyborg. I mean, it's not necessarily looking terrible, but it's not looking great as well. So the Commanders did bring in a few kickers to come and try out in practices this week, and just to let you know, that also includes Washington Defenders kicker Matt McCrane. So they brought in a few kickers just in case. We'll see what happens there. But the good news is Austin Cyborg, according to John Com, did kick today, but the team did continue to work out some kickers. So we'll see what happens there. I really hope Austin Cyborg can play, because this is a very physical and stingy Steelers defense. So we're going to need every point that we can get, including some field goals. Now moving on to the last part of this video, the Commanders game captains for this week versus the Steelers. You have Terry McLaurin, Bobby Wagner, usual team captain. He's pretty much been a part of the rotation constantly, but Percy Butler is the third one. Shouts out to him. Shouts out to Terry McLaurin having 2 touchdowns on just 2 catches versus Deonte Banks and those Giants, and talking your trash while you did it. Then of course, shouts out to Bobby Wagner for being the quarterback of the defense, the leader of this defense, and also an elite run stopper. And then Percy Butler is pretty interesting, because I didn't notice him stand out much against the Giants specifically, but maybe I missed something on special teams, or maybe something on the all 22 defensively. But either way, congratulations to all 3, because being week 10 captains means that you stood out and did something significant in week 9. So let's keep it going and keep winning those coin tosses as well. We've been on a coin toss streak. Let's keep that going, man. Let's defer to start the game. Let's start on defense versus the Steelers. Let's get it, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, still farm the bell next to that subscription button, so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for pulling up and supporting every video. If you made it this far in the video, you are the GOAT. Please do not leave this video without leaving a like. And of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video, especially the Marshon Lattimore situation above all else. But also, of course, let me know how you feel about Brian Robinson versus Chris Rodriguez. If Brian Robinson can't go, how do you feel about Chris Rodriguez? Are you confident in him? And then also this kicker situation. Should we be more concerned about this kicker situation than the corner or the running back situation? Because at least with corner, you know, we're 7-2 with the guys we've had. With the running back, we've seen other guys step up in Brian Robinson's place when necessary. We haven't seen a game with Austin Cyborg since week 1, when the kicker that we had, Cade Mays, whatever his name was, or I can't even remember his name right now, but thank goodness I can't. When he missed every single kick and we lost that game. You know, with Austin Cyborg, we're technically 7-1. Remember that. So is that a bigger concern than either the corner or the Brian Robinson running back situation? Let me know how you feel about that in the comment section. And remember that this video is sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. And please make sure, if y'all don't do anything else, please gamble responsibly, man. Please do that one. Please. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.